I'm Allie, and today on Plotopsy, we have D.L. Hammons here to discuss the final book in his Taggart McGill trilogy, Tool.
Hi, I'm D.L. Hammons. I'm the author of Tool, which is the third book of the Taggart McGill mystery series, the first two books of which was Prick and Jerk. And I'm here to talk to you today and to answer a few questions.
Glad to have you today. Let's go ahead and get started. Why was Tool the right title to end this trilogy?
Right from the very beginning, Taggart McGill's story was always going to be a three-book story. It was always going to be a trilogy, and the title of each book was always going to be a dual meaning title, which meant it was going to represent the perceived persona of the main character, which was Taggart, and the mode of murder in each of the books. So the reason why Tool was the proper way to end the series, in that the arc that Taggart was going through in all three of these books was predetermined in my mind from the get-go, and I knew he had to end up in a certain spot, in a certain situation, surrounded by a certain set of people, and coming to grips with things that traumatized him in the past. And I knew it had to end in this scenario that I laid out in the third book. And using Tool as the title and the overall narrative of the book just seemed right. And, I can't really explain it much further without giving too much away about plot points and surprises and things that get revealed. But it was always from the point where I was getting ready to write the very first word of the first book, it was always going to end this way, with Tool being the third book.
It sounds like you had quite a bit planned out from the start. Despite knowing where you were going with the series, what are some of the unique challenges presented when writing the final mystery in a trilogy?
There's numerous challenges I found when I was concluding this trilogy. Uh, One of the main ones is you want to stick the landing. You've written two previous books that you're very proud of, that you think the readers will embrace, will love, and this third book, which is the final book, which you've advertised as the final book, you want to stick the landing. You want to come out with the readers thinking, wow, that was an awesome series. I really loved the way that it ended. I was satisfied. The mysteries and the reveals, the surprises in this third book were just as good and even better than the first two books. So there's a bar that you've set that you want to get it over on this third book. And so you're setting an expectation for yourself even before you begin, and it puts a little bit of pressure on you as you're going about it. That's one way. Another way is when you've determined that from the get-go that there was only going to be three books and this is going to be the last book. The next challenge is you've become so close to these characters in these books that you really don't want to step away from them. You enjoy inhabiting their world. You enjoy writing about them and creating situations and just being part of their world as you're writing this trilogy, and you don't want to give that up. And so I found myself, I kind of drugged my feet on the third book because I was not looking forward to coming to the end. And then I've had people come back to me and say, well, if you've dreaded it so much, why don't you just write more books? Because that's not where the story needed to go. I've determined from the get-go that this was going to be a three-book series. Taggart's story, Cassie's story, all the characters in this book story was going to be part of this arc. And I didn't see a future beyond that in terms of something interesting that would be worthy of making into a book. So, it's not a choice of continuing on to satisfy my own desire to inhabit their world, but it's something you had to come to face with, and I finally did. I got over the hump. I finished the book, and it makes me sad that I finished this series, but it was a challenge. But it's something, as an author, you have to set aside your own feelings at some point, get logical, be more black and white, look at things from a different perspective, and realize that it's the best thing for the book, it's the best thing for the series, and that's just the way it needs to be. So that's what I did. But it was a challenge for me.
That must be hard saying goodbye to your characters. What's one theme running through all three books that readers might not notice immediately?
The Taggart McGill series has many different themes running through it. Some of them obvious, some of them not. One of which I think is kind of runs in the background that you're not fully aware of as you're going through the story is the theme of assuming, making assumptions based on not enough facts, not enough evidence, not enough experience, and running with those assumptions and acting on those assumptions, and where it can lead you, usually to not a very good place, and making bad decisions. Whereas the assumptions are often knee-jerk assumptions. They're not really, people aren't taking the time to think through their actions because they're reacting to an assumption. And that's something through all three books. It's illustrated time and time again. Whereas I try not to beat the readers over the head with it, but it's always there in the background. How people, characters in the books are unconsciously making assumptions, and I try to point out the ramifications of what happens when assumptions are made based on very little or no real facts. So I would say that assumptions, or bad assumptions, is an underlying theme that runs through all three of the books.
One of the major themes seems to be found family. How does that influence the choices these characters make?
The theme of found family is something that's prevalent in most of the books that I write. I gravitate towards that theme, and I enjoy writing about it. And it drives the decisions that these characters make, because it's something to me that we all, I don't know, we all strive for. We all hope that we will be that way if we encounter a situation similar or to what these characters would encounter, that we would react in the same way, that we would hold those same kind of values. And it's something maybe beyond what we're normally used to, and we're growing. We're, like I said in another answer, we're evolving, and found family is a way to explore that and see how people can become more than what they're capable of. And so it drives all the characters in this book. Found family, the relationships between each of them are, I don't want to say fictional, because everybody hopes that they can stumble into something similar, a found family relationship like that. And we all strive to maybe act that way in our real life if we ever find ourselves in a situation like that.
Something that I think makes this series so unique is the POV choice. What made Cassie the right person to tell Taggart's story?
A lot of people, when they read the series, are kind of surprised to find out that even though Taggart McGill gets most of the headline note of notoriety and is talked about the most, but all three books are told from the point of view of Cassie Underwood. And the reason why she is the perfect character to tell this story is there's many reasons. First and foremost is I wanted Taggart to be a complete mystery to the reader, which means I obviously I wasn't going to tell it from a first person point of view, not even a limited third person point of view. I wanted the reader to find out about Taggart like the characters in the book are finding out about characters. So Taggart. So he needed to be a complete blank for them, and that meant I couldn't write it from his point of view. I needed to write it from somebody else. And this book is always, all three books have always been about the differences between people and how they can be brought together under certain circumstances, and they find commonality and they latch on to one another. And so I needed somebody to be the complete opposite of Taggart. Taggart was a loner. He has a toxic reputation in the small city where he grew up. And I needed somebody to be the exact opposite of that. And Cassie is the exact opposite of that. At least she starts out that way. She is the homecoming queen. She has lots of friends. She thinks her life is perfect at the beginning of the book, but she finds out really quickly that it isn't, and things happen that change her mind about where she fits in the world and how people perceive her and how she wants to be perceived by people. So both people, both characters, Taggart and Cassie, are in search of an identity in one way or another, but they're polar opposites from one another. And so Cassie was the perfect character to tell Taggart's story. And because they're both changing and they're both coming together, and she's finding out about Taggart right along with the reader. So she made the perfect choice.
I like that we're seeing Taggart from someone else's perspective. Why was it important that he remain imperfect even as readers grow to understand him?
I view Taggart as, it's maybe an overused description, as an onion, peeling back layers of an onion. And you're doing that in all three of the books in the Taggart McGill series, starting with mostly with the first one, but it continues on for the second and third book. You're peeling back layers of what Taggart is all about. And I wanted him in those layers, and that in another way to view it though is as you're peeling back layers, the what you're peeling back and what you're revealing is changing before your eyes, because Taggart is being exposed to new situations, new people in his lives, and so his experience of the world around him is changing as people are reve- uh, finding out who he is. So it was important that we don't get bored finding about Taggart as we're going through that process. So the reader needed to stay engaged with the mystery of who Taggart McGill really is, and in some way you're also changing right along with him. Your understanding of him when you first make a determination of who you think Taggart is, as it's changing throughout the course of all three books. He's changing, and your opinion of him is changing right along with that. So it was key to the story that he keep evolving and keep becoming a source of a way to keep the reader engaged, and it just seems right that you don't, or I don't, as the author, I don't spill all the beans in the very first book. You need to, whatever beans I wanted to spill, I needed to sprinkle them throughout all three books. And then it concludes in the third book where most of the beans are revealed and a pseudo resolution is found. But you're still, even as the third book concludes, you're left with lingering, you're wondering about what Taggart's future might look like. Because again, he's still evolving, just like we all are. I hope that answers your question.
That definitely does. And speaking of spilling the beans, how did you balance delivering answers while still surprising readers?
That's, as a mystery writer, as a thriller writer, that's one of your main goals when you set down to write a mystery book. Is you want to do exactly that. You want to balance how many twists and reveals that, and where to put them in the book, and but also leave the readers guessing. You want them always guessing because you want them to go to the next chapter to get another clue or get another bit of information that will help them fill in the puzzle. But yeah, as a mystery reader as well, I've read books and watched television series and watched movies where the number of questions build to a point where you get frustrated because you've not received enough answers yet. And when you get to a point like that, you become very close to either closing the book or turning off the movie because you get frustrated because you're not getting enough answers. So there is a balance. You want to give answers, but you also want to keep the readers guessing. One of the ways that I do that and helps me do that is I am a plotter. I outline all of my books, and I outline exactly what happens when, what is going to be revealed when, what questions, what red herrings, what clues are going to be when, so it helps me see visually where the peaks and valleys are. And it helps me spread them out. So I do have that balance. I think I do a pretty good job of keeping the readers engaged, but also giving them some answers along the way. And it's an ongoing thing that happens with every book. It's not something that becomes ingrained in you, but you do have to get a sense of what your readers can handle and what they enjoy and what their limits are. And once you get a pretty good knowledge of that, in my mind, in the way that I worked, I know how to lay out my surprises and my clues and my reveals to make it a page turner.
You mentioned to me being excited to talk about the arc of the entire trilogy. So, what story were you truly telling across Prick, Jerk, and Tool?
The idea for all three of these books came to me one day when I was driving somewhere with my wife. We were talking about ideas of books for me to write, and the theme of duality popped into my head. And in that, what I mean by that is that duality, in that I wanted to come at it in different ways throughout the course of the books. First and foremost being with the titles of the books. All three of the titles have dual meanings, being that they represent the perceived persona of the main character, and then also represent the method of murder in all three books. And so I thought of the name of the books before I thought of anything else, before I thought of the characters, before I thought of the plot. It was the name of the books. And then I went further. I started to explore further the theme of duality, with the idea that somebody can be perceived as one way and be totally different. And it's just not one character. It's multiple characters in this books, in these series of books, that would be the same way, that they're perceived one way, but they're actually something much different. And I wanted to explore that both in the positive and the negative aspects of that. And that's why I came up with the duality between Taggart and Cassie, my two main characters. Taggart is an outcast. Taggart has a toxic reputation in their small town. He's a loner, whereas Cassie is the prom queen. She has buku of friends. She's high up on the social calendar. So the duality is shining through in the difference between these two main characters. But then I wanted to slowly bring them together. And I also wanted to bring other characters that were exhibiting the same kind of duality in how the world perceives them and bring them together. And then all of that, I lay it on top of a mystery. 3 mysteries. And I wanted to take that duality, and I wanted to take these characters, and I wanted to build in a mystery, and I wanted to build in shocking surprises that would engage the reader in 2 ways: that they would find these characters in this situation, in their dual nature, interesting, but then the mystery that they are coming together to solve is also engaging. So basically, the long answer to that short question was duality was the main theme that sprung out of my brain, that caused Taggart to come to life, that caused Cassie to come to life, that caused Chewie to come to life, Toons, Delta, all the characters in these books sprung from the idea of duality, and how perception does not equal reality, and how these characters could all come together and, much in a way of a Scooby Gang, solve these crimes and, maybe surprise a couple readers as well.
This has been a fascinating conversation, and it's been really interesting to get some insight into how you approach finishing the final book and the emotion behind writing it.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to me stumble through and answer the best that I could some of the questions that were put to me. If you're interested in finding more of my books, I have Twist, which is a standalone mystery. I have Moving Fear, which is a young adult horror book. And all my books can be found on Amazon, Kindle Unlimited, or if you're interested in buying signed books, you can get them from me on my website, which is dlhammons.com. Thanks again. Bye.
Thanks to D.L. Hammons for being here with us today, and go check out the Taggart McGill series. I'll have the books linked in the comments below. And I'll see you guys next time for another Plotopsy.